All right, so now we're in 7.1, order of operations. Really, order of operations is just kind of the rules that we use in mathematics to make sure that we all get the same result when we are evaluating an equation or an expression. So there is a set order, basically rules that have been set out so that when we evaluate something, we're all on the same page. So these are the different grouping things that we're going to go through. If I put all of these letters together, it is, we call it PEMDAS because it kind of spells out PEMDAS. We're going to talk about what each of these letters stands for down here mathematically. But this is kind of an acronym that we can use to remember the order that we should evaluate things in. And one of the acronyms that I use to remember this is Please Excuse My Dear Aunt Sally. And I think a lot of us have heard that one, but Please Excuse My Dear Aunt Sally just kind of helps us remember which order to do things in. So the P here mathematically stands for parentheses. So anytime I have any equation or any expression that I need to evaluate, I think I spelled parentheses wrong. Let's see if I did parentheses. So anytime I want to evaluate, I'm going to first look inside parentheses. I'm going to say what is inside that grouping symbol. Another grouping symbol that goes on the same level as parentheses is like another grouping symbol is a square root. So if I have inside of my expression maybe like square root of 10 plus 6, and then maybe like a plus 5 out here, I'm going to evaluate this 10 plus 6 that's under the square root first, and then I'm going to add the 5. So this square root acts sort of like a parentheses. And another example of that is a division symbol. So let's say I have maybe like 10 plus 4 divided by 7. Okay, I'm not going to try to divide 10 by 7 first or 4 by 7 first. I'm going to add the 10 plus 4 first. So this division symbol is another grouping symbol that is on the same level with parentheses. So it may not just look like something with parentheses around it. This P here, although it stands for parentheses, really encompasses these other grouping symbols. So the first thing we do is anything inside a grouping symbol. Okay, the second thing, this E here stands for exponents. So once I've evaluated anything that's in those grouping symbols, I'm going to move on to any exponents that are in my expression or my equation. Once I've evaluated the exponents, I'm going to move on to multiplication and division. So you'll notice here on my chart that multiplication and division are on the same line here. And that is because one does not take precedence over the other. So as I evaluate my equation or my expression, after I've evaluated parentheses and exponents, next I'm going to move on to any multiplication and division in the problem. So if there's more than one multiplication and division in the problem, how do I know which one to do first? That's what this little arrow over here tells me. The arrow tells me let's work from left to right. So once all the exponents have been evaluated, I'm looking for any instances of multiplication and division, and I'm just going to work through the problem from left to right and evaluate all those multiplication and divisions in that order. So I'm going to hurry and write here that M is for multiplication, and that D is for division. And again, that arrow just means we're going to work from left to right in the problem. And we'll do some examples in a moment. Okay, next we have A and S. A is for addition, and S is for subtraction. Subtraction. I think I missed a T over here. Addition. No, just one T. All right, so addition and subtraction. Now again, it has an arrow here, left to right. They're on the same line, which means addition and subtraction are on the same level. One doesn't take precedence over the other, but again, we work from left to right as we go through there. So let's go on to our next slide here, and we'll do a couple of examples, and we will see how to use these. All right, so here we have an example. These are just examples using numbers. We're just going to evaluate as we go. So remember, the first thing that we look for is parentheses. So I do have some parentheses here. So I'm going to start by looking inside. Now inside these parentheses, I have some addition and I have some subtraction. And again, remember that this addition and subtraction, those are on the same level. So I'm just going to work from left to right. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to add the 3 and the 6 together. So 3 plus 6 is 9. So I'm going to keep everything else in the expression the same. I'm going to keep the negative 4 out in front of the parentheses. Here I'm just adding 3 plus 6 together to get 9. And then I have minus negative 3. Alright, so now again, I still have my parentheses here. I'm still working inside the parentheses, and I'm going to do this 9 minus negative 3 next. So again, I'll rewrite the problem. I'm going to keep the negative 4 out front. If I do 9 minus negative 3, remember that if I subtract a negative, that becomes positive. So this is really 9 plus 3, and 9 plus 3 is 12. So now I have negative 4 times 12. And that is equal to negative 48. Remember, negative times a positive is negative. So this, if I evaluate this using my order of operations, I'm going to get negative 48. All right, on this next problem here, we don't have any parentheses, so don't have to worry about grouping symbols. We do have a division here, but there's nothing to evaluate on the top or the bottom. So even though that is a grouping symbol, there's nothing to group here. So I don't have any parentheses, I don't have any exponents, so I can go on to division and multiplication and division. I only have one instance here, and it's this 9 divided by 3. So that's actually what I'm going to evaluate first here before anything else. So everything else I'm just going to leave exactly the way it is. So I have negative 3 minus 5, and then negative 9 over 3 is going to give me a minus 3, because 9 divided by 3 is 3, and then I have 9 plus 4. So now I have nothing left here. I have no parentheses, I have no exponents, I have no multiplications, I have no divisions. It's just addition and subtraction, and again I'm going to work from left to right as I go across. So negative 3 minus 5 is negative 8. Negative 8 minus 3 plus 4, just keeping everything again. And then negative 8 minus 3, a negative plus another negative makes a bigger negative, so negative 11 plus 4. And then negative 11 plus 4 would give me a negative 7. So that one would be negative 7. Okay, let's give a couple more examples here. Clear these ones out. Let's see. Okay, and go on to the next slide. Alright, so here on this first example, I do have a grouping symbol. It doesn't look like parentheses, but it is a grouping symbol. So I'm going to do everything on the top here before I try to divide anything by 4. So the first thing I'm looking at is the stuff on top here, right? But on top here, I'm going to use my order of operations. So on top here, since there's no exponents, I'm going to move on to multiplication division. There is one multiplication right here. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. 14 times 2 is 28. And then I'm going to keep everything else in my problem exactly like it is. And then I'm going to look for what's next. Okay, so again, I still have this grouping symbol that keeps all of this stuff here up here together. So I'm going to go across here. I only have addition, subtraction, which in this case is just subtraction. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to work from left to right, and I'm going to work this out. So 28 minus 6 is 22. And then I still have the minus negative 2. And then I am dividing by 4. Now, a lot of people want to get in a hurry, and they just want to do a bunch of these in their head, and that's fine. But I find that if you write down each step, you're much less likely to make mistakes, especially when there's a bunch of different signs and things here. Again, 22 minus negative 2, if I subtract a negative, that becomes positive. So 22 plus 2 on the top is going to be 24. And on the bottom, I have the 4. So now I can go ahead and divide. 24 divided by 4 is 6. Okay, so that one would be 6. Okay, for our last example, this looks really long. Again, I'm going to look for grouping symbols first, such as parentheses or division or square roots. Here I do have a division with something to evaluate underneath it. So that's the first thing I'm going to do right here, is this 2 minus negative 2. So everything else is going to stay the same at first. Okay, so all that stays the same, and then I have minus negative 12 over, and then again, a minus a negative becomes plus, so 2 plus 2 on the bottom is 4. Now as I look at these are all just addition and subtraction, so those are going to be last. This one is a division, so I'm going to do that one before I do these other things. So again, I like to write out each step, keep everything that I'm not evaluating yet the same, and then I have minus, minus, and then 12 divided by 4 is 3. So now I can just go ahead and work out all these additions and subtractions. I'm going to work from left to right. So 6 plus negative 1, if I have a plus and negative, it's the same as minus. So 6 minus 1 is 5. So again, I'm going to keep everything else the same, just try to keep it organized. And then I have 5 plus 3 is 8, plus 6 minus negative 3. Again, left to right, 8 plus 6 is 14. And then minus a negative becomes plus. So this is 14 plus 3, which gives me 17. All right, we'll go ahead and practice some of these.